Welcome to Nightwhisper. Nightwhisper brings you the darkest tales from the shadows. Join our community. Subscribe, leave a like, and prepare yourself for stories that will haunt your dreams. My name is Leo Sanderson. I'm 20 years old, and I've been working as an usher at the Hollow Screen Cinema for about 3 weeks now. This period has probably been longer than planned. Before I begin, I want to clarify something. This is not the right place. Normal workplace rules do not apply here. Survival instructions? The previous manager who wrote those instructions? As far as I know, he has also been missing for 3 weeks, since the day I started my shift. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know how I ended up here, working the night shift at a movie theater underneath an abandoned shopping mall that smells like burnt film stock and something else I can't quite identify? The answer is depressingly simple. Money, or rather, the complete lack of it. I'd spent 2 years and $12,000 on an online journalism degree that turned out to be worth exactly nothing in the real world. Editors wanted experience. Experience required unpaid internships. Unpaid internships required parents with money, which I definitely didn't have. So there I was, 3 months behind on rent, eating ramen for every meal, when I saw the Craigslist ad. Night usher wanted. Ashwood Mall location, $28 an hour for checking tickets and cleaning up popcorn. I figured it was a typo, but I was desperate enough to find out. The interview was strange. Marshal Price, the manager, met me in the empty lobby at 11 p.m. He was maybe 55, with gray stubble and eyes that looked like they hadn't seen real sleep in years. The cinema itself felt wrong from the moment I walked in. Not dirty or run down exactly, just wrong. Like a room where the angles don't quite add up, or a painting where the perspective is subtly off. "You read the job posting carefully?" Marshal asked, not bothering with small talk. "Yeah, night shift, 28 an hour. Checking tickets and—" "The pay is accurate," he interrupted. "You'll earn every cent. This job has certain requirements beyond normal usher duties." He slid a piece of yellowed paper across his desk. At the top, in neat handwriting, it said, "The rules." I scanned the list. 12 rules. Some seemed normal enough. Others were completely insane. Rule number 7. I read aloud. "If you notice shadows being out of sync with your surroundings, return to the last room you were in as quickly as possible. Do not touch your shadow under any circumstance." I looked up at Marshal. "This some kind of joke?" "I wish it was." His face was completely serious. "Every rule on that list was written in blood, Mr. Sanderson. Sometimes literally. You follow them exactly, you'll be fine. You don't—" He trailed off, staring at something behind me. I turned. Nothing there. "Let's just say the pay reflects the hazards." I should have walked out right then. But $28 an hour would clear my debt in 6 months, and I'd always prided myself on my skepticism. Ghosts, monsters, supernatural bullshit, none of it real. Just psychology and coincidence and people seeing patterns where none existed. "When do I start?" I asked. Marshal smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. sharp. Don't be late." "And Leo?" He stood up, extending his hand. "Memorize those rules. Your life might depend on it." I laughed. He didn't. That was 3 weeks ago. Marshal Price hasn't been seen since the night after my first shift. His office is still locked. His coffee mug still sits on the break room counter, a layer of mold growing on the surface. The police came by once, asked some questions, then seemed oddly eager to leave. Now it's just me, Nora, the overnight cleaning lady who barely speaks, and whatever the hell else lives in this place. But you're not here for context. You're here for the rules. So let me tell you about them one by one and what happened when I encountered each one. Rule number 1, never, ever open the door to Theater 9 once the movie has started. My first night, I thought this was about not disturbing customers. Maybe Theater 9 had bad soundproofing or something. I understood how wrong I was around 1:30 a.m. I was doing my rounds, checking each theater to make sure everything was running smoothly. Theaters 1 through 8 were fine. Standard late-night crowd, couples, insomniacs, people with nowhere else to be. Then I reached Theater 9. The door was vibrating, not shaking violently, just a subtle tremor, like something large was breathing on the other side. I pressed my ear against it and heard the strangest sound. Underneath the muffled audio of whatever movie was playing, there was something else. A rhythm, like dozens of voices speaking in perfect unison, but the words were backwards or in a language I'd never heard. The door handle started turning under my hand. I hadn't touched it. It was turning from the inside. "Don't!" Nora's voice made me jump. She'd appeared beside me without a sound, her mop still in hand. "Rule 1. You read Rule 1, yes?" "Yeah, but something's wrong in there. The door?" "Nothing wrong. Theater 9 just testing, seeing if you know rules, seeing if you're stupid." Her accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. "You open door during movie, you go inside. You don't come back. Or maybe you come back wrong." "That's insane." She shrugged. "You think I'm crazy? Fine, open door. But you do it alone. I won't watch." She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. "Sir." I stood there for another minute, hand hovering over the handle. The turning had stopped. The vibration had ceased. Behind the door, I could hear normal movie sounds again. Just a regular theater. I walked away. $28 an hour wasn't worth finding out if Nora was right. The movie let out at 2 a.m. I watched from the lobby as the customers filed out of Theater 9, 7 people total. They looked normal, bored, checking their phones, complaining about the ending. Nothing strange at all. Except one detail I noticed as they passed. None of them cast shadows under the lobby lights. Rule number 2. If you see someone dressed as a movie character leading children away from the lobby, notify the manager immediately. This one didn't come up for me until night 5. By then, I'd started to accept that the hollow screen wasn't exactly normal. I'd heard scratching sounds coming from inside the walls. I'd seen Theater 9's door handle turn on its own 3 more times. And twice, I'd found popcorn containers in the trash that seemed to contain something other than popcorn. Something wet and red and still warm. But I was managing. The pay had hit my account on schedule. $1,280 for my first week. I could almost pretend everything was normal if I just followed the rules and didn't think too hard about what I was seeing. Then came Friday night. We were screening some new Marvel movie, and the lobby was packed with families, kids everywhere running around in cheap superhero costumes their parents had bought at Party City. Total chaos. That's when I saw him. At first, he looked like one of the kids' dads who'd gotten really into the theme. He was dressed as Iron Man, but not the kind of costume you buy at a store. This was detailed, movie accurate. The armor had weight to it, actual metal, with LEDs glowing in the chest piece and palms. But something was wrong with the proportions. The helmet was too large, the arms were too long, and when he moved, he moved wrong, joints bending at angles that weren't quite human. 3 kids were following him. They walked in a perfect line, faces blank, heading toward the service corridor that led to the back offices and storage areas. Staff only. I remembered Rule 2. Marshal's office was locked. He'd been missing for 5 days by then. But the rule said, notify the manager immediately, so I did the next best thing. I called the emergency number he'd written at the bottom of the rules list. Someone picked up on the first ring. "Which rule?" A woman's voice, flat and businesslike. 2. There's someone dressed as Iron Man, yes. Don't follow them. Stay in the lobby. Keep customers away from the service corridor. We're handling it." "Who is we? And what about those kids?" She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, watching as Iron Man and the three children disappeared through the service corridor door. Every instinct screamed at me to go after them, to stop whatever was happening. But I'd learned enough to know the rules existed for a reason. 2 minutes later, the service door opened again. The three kids walked out, looking confused but unharmed. They wandered back to their parents, who didn't seem to have noticed they'd been gone. Iron Man didn't come back out. At 4 a.m., when the crowds had thinned, I worked up the courage to check the service corridor. The hallway was empty. No sign of the costume or whoever had been wearing it. But at the far end, the door to the storage room was slightly ajar. I could see darkness inside, and I could smell something terrible, like meat left out in the summer sun for days. I closed that door and never opened it again. Some questions don't need answers. Rule number 3. If a customer complains about voices in the ventilation system, assure them you'll investigate. Take one of the packages marked R3 from behind the concession stand. Enter the vents through the access panel in the storage room. Leave the package at least 30 feet in. Exit immediately. This was the first rule I had to follow by myself, without anyone to guide me. It happened on night 8. A guy in his 30s approached the concession stand where I was refilling napkin dispensers. He looked uncomfortable. "Hey man, I don't want to be a pain, but there's something weird with your AC system in Theater 5. Weird how? I keep hearing voices, like whispering, but not from other people in the theater. It's coming from the vents." He laughed nervously. "I know how that sounds, but it's really distracting. Could you check it out?" I felt my stomach drop. "Sure thing. I'll look into it right away." Behind the concession stand, in a cabinet marked Emergency Supplies, I found the packages. They were about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown butcher paper and tied with twine. Each one was marked R3 in black marker. They were heavy and slightly warm to the touch. I grabbed one and headed for the storage room. The access panel to the ventilation system was in the ceiling, accessible by a ladder that was permanently mounted to the wall. I climbed up, flashlight in my teeth, package under my arm. The vent shaft was tight. I had to crawl on my stomach, using my elbows to drag myself forward. The metal was cold and vibrated slightly with the airflow. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness ahead of me, revealing junction points and side passages branching off into deeper darkness. That's when I heard them. The voices. They were whispering, just like the customer had said. But they weren't speaking English, or any language I recognized. The words seemed to slide around in my head, meaning nothing and everything at once, and they were getting closer. I counted my progress by arm lengths, 25 feet, 28, 30. Close enough. I unwrapped the package with shaking hands. Inside was meat. Fresh, raw, red meat. And not from any grocery store. There were shapes in there that looked almost, but not quite like fingers. Like someone had taken a human hand and rendered it down into its component parts, keeping the essential form but losing the details. The whispers stopped the moment I opened the package. Then they started screaming. The sound hit me like a physical force. Not loud, actually very quiet, barely above a whisper, but intense, desperate, hungry. I dropped the meat and scrambled backward, kicking and clawing my way toward the access panel. Something brushed against my ankle in the darkness behind me. I've never moved faster in my life. I exploded out of that vent shaft, fell 8 feet to the storage room floor, and slammed the access panel shut behind me. For a long moment, I just lay there, breathing hard, listening. Silence. Then, very faint, the sound of something eating. I checked on Theater 5 an hour later. The customer from before waved at me, giving a thumbs up. "Whatever you did, it worked. Thanks, man." "No problem," I said, and tried not to think about what I'd just fed. Rule number 4. If the lights go out while you're cleaning a theater, take a seat. A movie will play. You must watch until the end. Don't look away from the screen no matter what you see or hear. This is the rule that almost broke me. The rule that made me seriously consider quitting, debt or no debt. It happened on night 14, and I still have nightmares about it. I was cleaning Theater 7 after the last showing of the night. Standard procedure: sweep the aisles, check for lost items, wipe down the armrests. The theater was empty. I was alone. Then the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a gradual dimming, just instant, complete darkness. My flashlight died at the same moment, and I was left standing in absolute black. The screen lit up, not the normal white-blue glow of a projector. This was different, older, like watching film that had been buried for decades and only recently dug up. I remembered Rule 4. I practically ran to the nearest seat and sat down, eyes locked on the screen. The image resolved into a room, a basement maybe, or a sublevel of some building I didn't recognize. Concrete walls, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, and a chair in the center of the frame. Someone was tied to it. I won't describe what happened next in detail. I can't. Every time I try to put it into words, my hands start shaking and I taste copper in my mouth. Let me just say this. What I watched wasn't a movie. It was a recording. And what was done to the person in that chair was done slowly, methodically, with purpose. The worst part? The person looked familiar. Not someone I knew personally, but I'd seen their face before. It took me 15 minutes of footage to remember where. They were wearing a hollow-screen cinema uniform. Name tag read, J. Morrison. I wanted to look away. God, I wanted to close my eyes, to run, to do anything except keep watching. But I could feel something behind me, not see it. The theater was still dark except for the screen. But I could feel it, massive, patient, waiting for me to break the rule. Hot breath on the back of my neck, the smell of spoiled meat, and a voice, barely a whisper. You know what this is, don't you? This is what happens when you look away. The movie lasted 42 minutes. When the lights finally came back on, I was alone, but the seat behind me was still warm. I looked up J. Morrison when I got home that morning, found an obituary from 8 months ago. Tragic accident, details withheld at family's request. No photo. Marshal had written something in the margins next to Rule 4 on my copy of the rules. I hadn't noticed it before. In tiny letters, James tried to run. He looked away. I'm sorry, James. Rule number 5. If you encounter a room where all customers are looking directly at you and smiling, leave immediately and inform the manager. No manager to inform anymore. So when it happened on night 16, I had to improvise. I was checking on Theater 12, our smallest room, only seats 40 people. Late show of some indie horror movie I'd never heard of. I opened the door as quietly as possible, just peeking in to make sure everything was running smoothly. Every single person in that theater was staring at the door, at me. They were all smiling. Same smile. Wide. Too wide, showing too many teeth. 40 people, sitting perfectly still, eyes locked on me, smiling. I slammed the door and ran to Marshal's office, still locked, still empty except for that moldy coffee and whatever else he'd left behind. The emergency number just rang and rang. Think, Leo. What would Marshal do? The rules said to inform the manager. But the rules were written by someone who expected the manager to be there. What was the purpose? To get someone with authority to intervene, to stop whatever was happening before it got worse. I was the only authority figure left in this place. I grabbed the fire alarm and pulled it. The building erupted in noise, strobing lights, that horrible electronic blaring that makes your teeth ache. I watched through the lobby windows as people started evacuating from the other theaters, confused, annoyed, but moving. Then, Theater 12's door opened. They came out in a perfect line. still smiling, still in sync. They walked past me toward the exits, and I noticed something that made my blood freeze. They were all breathing at exactly the same time. In, out, in, out. 40 pairs of lungs moving as one. As the last one passed, they turned to look at me. The smile faded. "Clever," they said in unison, "but temporary. We'll try again." Then they blinked, stumbled, looked around in confusion. The spell, or whatever it was, had broken. They started complaining about the fire alarm like normal people, checking their phones, heading for the exits. I canceled the alarm, apologized to everyone, made up a story about a malfunctioning smoke detector. The crowd dispersed. I checked Theater 12 afterward. Empty. Normal. Except for one detail. On every single seat, carved into the fabric with something sharp, was a symbol I didn't recognize. 40 identical symbols. I covered them with duct tape and never mentioned them to anyone. Rule number 6. If you find a book bound in black leather on the premises, do not open it. The book appeared on night 19. I found it sitting on the concession counter when I arrived for my shift. Black leather cover, no title, no markings. Old. You could tell by the smell and the way the leather had worn smooth at the edges. I picked it up. It was heavy and warm, like someone had just been holding it. Rule 6 said, don't open it. Simple enough. But here's the thing. I'd been following these rules for almost 3 weeks now, and I still didn't understand why. What was this place? Why did it follow these specific, bizarre patterns? And who the hell had written these rules in the first place? Marshal's name was on the list as the author. But some of the rules referenced things from before his time, events from years ago, decades maybe. And that note about Jay Morrison. I'm sorry, James. Like Marshal had known him, like he'd watched what happened and couldn't stop it. The book felt like it might have answers. I took it to Marshal's office and tried the door, still locked. I'd tried everything I could think of over the past weeks. Credit cards, paper clips, even calling a locksmith who took one look at the place and refused the job. Nothing worked. But tonight, the doorknob turned when I touched it. Marshal's office was exactly as he'd left it. Coffee mug, papers scattered on the desk, computer still on, password protected. And on the wall behind his chair, a map of the cinema's layout. Except it showed more rooms than actually existed. 14 theaters instead of 12. And levels beneath the main floor that I'd never seen any access to. I set the black book on his desk and stared at it. Don't open it. Simple rule. Follow it. But if I didn't find answers soon, I was going to lose my mind. The things I'd seen, the rules I'd followed, they couldn't just exist in a vacuum. There had to be an explanation. A framework. Something that made sense of the madness. I reached for the cover. I wouldn't. Nora stood in the doorway. I hadn't heard her approach. That book, it shows you things. True things. But truth here is poison, trust me. You know what's in it? I know Marshal read it once. After that, he was different. Sadder. Scared of things that hadn't scared him before. She walked into the office, moving to stand between me and the book. You want to know what this place is? Fine. I tell you a simple version. This cinema, it's not just building. It's door. Opening to somewhere else, somewhere bad. Rules keep door mostly closed. Mostly. That's insane. So, is man dressed as Iron Man who steals children? So, is room full of people who smile same smile? So, is movie that plays in dark for audience of one? You've seen insane, Leo. You've lived it. Why is truth harder to believe? I looked at the book again. It sat there, innocent and terrible. What happened to Marshal? Nora was quiet for a long moment. He broke rule, not on purpose, but he broke it anyway. Now, he pays price. What rule? 12. Rule 12 wasn't on my list. My copy only went up to Rule 11. I'd assumed that was all of them, but apparently Marshall had kept some secrets. What does Rule 12 say? I asked Nora. She shook her head. Not for me to tell. You find out when you need to know, or maybe you never find out. Maybe you keep working here, follow rules 1 through 11, collect your money, and live long life. That would be good. She moved toward the door. Leave book alone, Leo, please, for your sake. She left, taking her mop and bucket with her. I heard her footsteps fade down the corridor, then the distant sound of water running in the utility sink. I looked at the book one more time. Then I picked it up, carried it to the far corner of Marshal's office, and placed it spine out on the highest shelf I could reach. Out of sight, out of mind. Or so I hoped. The door locked itself when I left. I heard the mechanism engage with a soft click, and when I tried the handle again, it wouldn't budge. Whatever it allowed me inside was done with me. For now. Rule number 7. If you notice shadows being out of sync with your surroundings, return to the last room you were in as quickly as possible. Do not touch your shadow under any circumstance. This one happened on night 20. By this point, I'd developed a routine. Arrive at 9:45 p.m., check in with Nora, review the rules even though I had them memorized, do my rounds every hour, avoid Theater 9, feed whatever lived in the vents when customers complained, keep my head down and my paycheck coming. But the cinema had other plans. I was crossing the lobby around 2 a.m. when I noticed something off. The overhead lights were creating shadows in all the normal ways, objects blocking light, casting darkness on the floor. Except for mine. My shadow was pointing the wrong direction. Not by much. Maybe 30 degrees off, but enough that once I noticed it, I couldn't look away. I stopped walking. My shadow stopped too, but a half-second late, like there was lag between my movement and its response. Rule 7. Don't touch your shadow. Return to the last room. I'd just come from Theater 4. I turned and started walking back, keeping my eyes on my shadow. It was getting worse. The angle was increasing, slowly but steadily. Instead of falling behind me toward the front entrance, it was sliding to my left. Reaching toward the service corridor, toward the storage room where I'd found the access panel to the vents, where I'd found that Iron Man costume. 10 feet from Theater 4's door, my shadow detached. It didn't fade or disappear. It just lifted off the floor like paper peeling away from a surface, becoming three-dimensional. Black. Featureless. Moving on its own. I ran. The shadow ran too, but not in the same direction. It was moving to cut me off, sliding across the lobby floor and up the walls with impossible speed. I could see it in my peripheral vision, a darkness that had depth and presence and purpose. 5 feet from the door. The shadow reached the wall beside me, climbing up toward the ceiling. 3 feet. It was directly overhead now, spreading across the acoustic tiles like ink in water. I grabbed the handle, yanked the door open, threw myself inside Theater 4, and slammed it shut behind me. Silence. Darkness. The movie had ended hours ago, and the theater was empty. My breathing echoed in the space, harsh and rapid. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept it across the room. Normal shadows. Everything casting darkness in the right direction at the right angle. I looked down at my feet. My shadow was back, connected, following me like it was supposed to. I stood there for 20 minutes just watching it, testing it, taking a step left, watching the shadow move with me. Raising my arm, watching it mirror the movement. Everything normal. When I finally worked up the courage to leave Theater 4, the lobby was empty. No sign of what had happened. But on the doorframe, right where my hand had grabbed it, there was a dark stain that hadn't been there before. It looked like a handprint, and it looked burned into the wood. Rule number 8. If a garbage bag begins moving violently or making noises, dispose of it in the special chute in the storage room. Do not open the bag. I'd been lucky with this one for 3 weeks. Never encountered it. Started to think maybe it was one of those rules that existed as a precaution, but rarely came up. Night 21 proved me wrong. I was taking out the trash from the concession stand, standard end-of-shift cleanup. Loading bags onto the cart, getting ready to wheel them to the dumpster out back. The bags were the usual contents: popcorn containers, candy wrappers, soda cups, nothing unusual. Then, one of them moved. Not just shifted from settling contents. Moved, bulged outward like something inside was pressing against the plastic. I stopped, staring at it. The bag moved again. This time I heard something. A wet, sliding sound, like something with a lot of surface area was readjusting itself inside. I thought about Rule 8. Special chute. Storage room. Don't open the bag. The bag started screaming. Not a human scream, or at least not a fully human scream. It had the pitch and desperation of a person in agony, but there was something else underneath. Something that sounded like it had too many mouths trying to scream at once. Harmonics that didn't exist in nature. The bag was thrashing now, actually jumping on the cart. The plastic was stretching, showing shapes inside. Too many angles. Too many limbs. A hand pressed against the inside of the bag, but it had too many fingers, and they were too long, and they bent in too many places. "Help me," something said from inside the bag. The voice was wrong, like someone doing an impression of human speech after only hearing it once. "Please, can't breathe. Let me out." I grabbed the cart and ran for the storage room. The bag was screaming the whole way, begging, crying, making sounds like a child in pain. Every instinct I had said to open it, to help, to do something. But I'd learned by now that instincts would get me killed in this place. The special chute was in the back corner of the storage room, behind some old film canisters and broken equipment. It was about 3 feet square, metal, with a heavy hinged cover. No label, no explanation, just the chute. I opened the cover and looked inside. Darkness. Deep darkness. I dropped my phone in flashlight mode, trying to see the bottom. The light fell for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then it disappeared without hitting anything. The bag's thrashing had gotten worse. It was tearing now, the plastic splitting in places. I could see things inside, wet things, moving things, eyes that weren't in the right places. I grabbed the bag. It was warm, and I could feel things shifting under my hands, and shoved it into the chute. It caught on the edges for a moment, still screaming, still begging. Then it fell. The screaming stopped immediately. I closed the chute cover and leaned against it, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. There was fluid on them from the bag, clear and slightly viscous, like saliva mixed with something else. From inside the chute, I heard a wet impact, very far down. Then silence. Then, very faintly, the sound of something eating. Rule number 9. If anyone exits Theater 9 during a show, do whatever they ask. Inform the manager immediately. This rule, God, this rule. This is where everything changed. It happened on night 22, a Monday, which meant light crowds. Only 3 theaters running shows. I was checking the schedule on the computer behind the concession stand when I heard it. The sound of a door opening. Theater 9. I looked up. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a suit that looked expensive but old-fashioned, like something from the 1940s. His face was pleasant, nondescript, the kind of face you'd forget 5 seconds after seeing it. He walked toward me with measured steps, not hurried, not slow, just precise, like he'd calculated exactly how long it should take to cross the lobby. "Good evening," he said. His voice was the same, pleasant, forgettable, but something about it made my skin crawl, like hearing a recording of a real person's voice, but knowing it was being played by something that had killed them. "Good evening," I managed. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak with the manager." Rule 9. Do whatever they ask. The manager isn't here. He's been missing for 3 weeks. The man's expression didn't change. "Unfortunate. Then, I suppose you'll do. You're the senior employee present?" "I'm the only employee present, other than Nora, but she just cleans." "Then you have authority to make decisions regarding this establishment?" This felt like a trap. Every word felt like a trap. "I can try to help with whatever you need." The man smiled. It was the least genuine smile I'd ever seen. "Walk with me." He turned and headed back toward Theater 9. Every part of me screamed not to follow him, but Rule 9 was absolute. Do whatever they ask. I followed. Theater 9's door was open. Inside, the movie was still playing, some black and white film I didn't recognize. The audience sat in their seats watching, not moving. I counted 12 people. None of them were breathing. "Do you know what this place is?" the man asked, not looking at me. His eyes were on the screen. "A movie theater," I said stupidly. "No, this place is a membrane, a thin spot between what is and what isn't, between your world and—" He paused, considering. "Let's call it somewhere else. For most of its existence, this cinema has been a neutral space, a border crossing that both sides agreed to respect. Do you understand?" "No. Of course not. Let me simplify. There are rules that keep this place stable, rules that prevent either side from gaining too much ground. Your manager, Marshal Price, maintained these rules dutifully for 13 years. He was good at his job." Was. Past tense. "Where is he?" I asked. "Paying a debt." The man finally looked at me. His eyes were wrong. Not the color, not the shape, just wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. Every 13 years, the membrane weakens. Reality becomes flexible here. Doors that should stay closed begin to open. To reinforce it, to buy another 13 years of stability, someone must volunteer to seal the breach from the inside. From the inside of what? The place where I come from. He smiled again. Marshal volunteered. He had no choice, really. The alternative was to let Theater 9 open fully, which would have consequences you cannot imagine. So he walked through, and the door closed behind him. And now he exists in my world, holding the breach shut with his will and his suffering. I felt sick. That's insane. That's survival, for him and for you. But there's a problem, Leo Sanderson. The man moved closer. Without a manager, the rules become unstable. They require someone with authority to enforce them, someone who understands what's at stake and chooses to maintain the balance. Right now, this cinema has no one. What about me? What about you? You're a temporary employee who's been here for 3 weeks. You have no real authority. No stake in this place beyond a paycheck. He leaned in, and I could smell something coming off him. Not cologne, not sweat. Something chemical and wrong. But you could choose to take authority, to become the new manager, to accept responsibility for maintaining these rules and all they protect. And if I don't? The man gestured toward the screen. The movie had changed. Now it was showing this lobby, this conversation, but from a different angle, from behind me. I turned. Nothing there. But on screen, I could see something standing where I'd just looked. Tall, thin, too many joints in its limbs, watching us with eyes that covered most of its head. If you don't, the man said softly, then the rules will fail one by one. Theater 9 will open, and things like that will come through. First 1, then 10, Then, too many to count. They'll spread beyond this building, beyond this city, and by the time your world realizes what's happening, it will be far too late to stop it. The thing on the screen moved, its head tilted, and I could see it had a mouth, multiple mouths, opening and closing in sequence, like it was trying to figure out how speech worked. "I need time to think," I said. "You have until tomorrow night," the man replied. "Return at your usual time. Bring your decision. Choose to accept responsibility, and I'll show you everything. The full rules, the true nature of this place, the tools you'll need to survive. Choose to walk away." He smiled. "Well, I suggest you be far from here when the membrane breaks." He walked past me toward the exit. As he passed, I felt a wave of cold so intense it hurt. Then he was gone, the door to Theater 9 closing softly behind him. On screen, the thing that had been standing behind me opened all of its mouths at once and screamed silently. The audience in Theater 9 remained motionless, not breathing, not blinking, just sitting there like dolls. I ran from that theater and didn't look back. Rule number 10. If a customer asks for the time and you don't have a watch, do not tell them. Direct them to the clock in the lobby. This rule saved my life on night 22, the same night I met the man from Theater 9. I didn't realize it at the time. After my encounter in Theater 9, I was shaken, barely holding it together. I wanted to quit, to walk out and never come back. But something kept me there. Curiosity, maybe, or obligation, or the creeping suspicion that walking away would be worse than staying. Around 4 a.m., a woman approached me at the concession stand. Middle-aged, wearing a nice coat and carrying a purse that probably cost more than my car. She looked normal, tired, like anyone would be at 4 a.m., but normal. "Excuse me," she said. "Do you have the time? My phone died." I started to answer. Started to say 4:15 or whatever it was. Then I remembered Rule 10. "I don't wear a watch," I said carefully, "but there's a clock in the lobby, just behind you." She smiled. "Oh, thank you." She turned to look. There were 4 clocks on the wall, always had been, as long as I'd worked here, one showing Pacific time, one Eastern, one Central, one Mountain. Standard for a business that dealt with movie release schedules across time zones. All 4 showed different times. None of them were 4 a.m. The woman stared at them for a long moment. Then she turned back to me. She was still smiling, but it was wrong now. Too wide, too fixed. "Which one is correct?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. Her smile faded. "You're no fun." Then she walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty lobby. I watched her go to the exit, push through the doors, and step outside into the parking lot, where she disappeared. Not walked away, disappeared, like she'd stepped through a door into nothing. I checked the clocks. They were all working now, all showing the correct time, 4:17 a.m. I called Nora. "What happens if you tell someone the time when you don't have a watch?" She was quiet for a moment. "You give them power over you. They know something you don't, what time it really is. They become real, and you become less real. Eventually you disappear too. Take their place. It's exchange." That's insane. You say that a lot. Not insane. Just rules. Different rules than outside world, but still rules. You learn them, you follow them, you survive. She was right. As insane as it all was, there was a logic to it. Twisted, nightmarish logic, but logic nonetheless. I just had to decide if I wanted to keep following it. Rule number 11. If you hear your name called from the basement, do not respond. Do not investigate. The cinema has no basement. I didn't know we had a basement. Or rather, I knew we didn't have a basement. The cinema was built on a concrete slab, single story, with a crawl space for utilities but nothing you could actually walk through. I'd seen the blueprints on Marshal's wall, but on night 23, my last night before I had to give the man from Theater 9 my decision, I heard it. Leo, my name, called from somewhere below me, underneath the floor. A voice that sounded like Marshall's voice, but distorted, like hearing someone talk through water. Leo, I need help. Please. I was in Theater 6 cleaning up after the last show. The voice was coming from a vent in the floor near the screen, one of those metal grates for the HVAC system. Leo, it's cold down here, so cold, please, let me out. Rule 11 was absolute. Do not respond. Do not investigate. But it sounded so much like Marshall. And if he was really trapped somewhere, if he was really suffering, I know you can hear me, Leo. I know you're scared, but I can help you. I can tell you about Rule 12. I can tell you how to survive. Just open the vent. Just talk to me. My hand was on the vent cover before I realized I'd moved. The metal was ice cold. I could feel condensation on my fingertips. That's it. Just a little more. Just lift the grate and I can... No. I pulled my hand back. The cinema has no basement. The voice stopped. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, something else spoke. Something that definitely wasn't Marshall. Clever boy, it said. The words were stretched out, syllables extended until they barely sounded like language anymore. But you'll make a mistake, eventually. They all do. I left Theater 6 and didn't go back for the rest of the night. When I told Nora about it later, she nodded grimly. Basement voice is old, older than cinema. It was here before building. Sometimes I think building was made here on purpose, to trap it, to keep it from spreading. What is it? She shrugged. Does it matter? It's hungry. It wants out. Rules keep it down there. That's all you need to know. Maybe she was right, but I was starting to realize that not knowing might be more dangerous than knowing. Ignorance felt like a weapon someone else was holding to my head. Night 24. Decision time. I arrived at 9:45 p.m. like always. Clocked in, checked the rules list one more time, even though I had them memorized. Nora was already there, mopping the lobby with the same methodical movements she did every night. You decided? She asked without looking up. How did you... Man from Theater 9 talked to you. I saw. Everyone who works here makes same choice eventually. Stay or go. No middle path. What did you choose? She smiled sadly. I chose 40 years ago. Different manager then. Different world. But same choice. I stay. I clean. I keep my head down. I survive. She looked at me finally. You're young. You have options. You should go. But you're telling me to stay. No, I tell you truth. Truth is, you stay, you probably die. This job kills everyone eventually. Maybe fast, maybe slow, but it kills. But you go? She gestured toward the front doors. You leave, and maybe things from this place follow you. Maybe they don't. Maybe world is safe. Maybe membrane breaks and monsters come through anyway. Who knows? She went back to mopping. At least if you stay, you know what you're fighting. She was right. That's what made the decision so hard. Walking away meant uncertainty. Staying meant certain suffering. But at least I'd know what I was suffering for. At 10 p.m. exactly, the door to Theater 9 opened. The man in the suit stepped out. He looked exactly the same as the night before. Same pleasant, forgettable face. Same old-fashioned clothes. Same wrong eyes. Well? He asked. I took a deep breath. I want to know everything first. All the rules. the truth about this place, what Marshal did, what happened to him, everything. The man smiled. That's not how this works. You choose first. Knowledge comes after. Commitment requires faith. Leo Sanderson. That's bullshit. That's reality. In my world and yours. He stepped closer. But I'll give you this much. Marshal made the same choice you're considering. He chose to stay, to become manager, to maintain the rules. And for 13 years, he kept this cinema stable, kept both worlds safe. Then, his time came due, and he paid the price. By going through Theater 9. Yes, into my world, sealing the breach, holding the membrane together for another 13 years. The man's expression didn't change, but something in his voice softened slightly. He's still there, you know, still holding it, still suffering, but still maintaining his duty. That's what management means here. Sacrifice when called upon. And if I become manager, in 13 years I'll have to do the same thing? Probably. Unless you find someone else to take your place. Transfer of authority is possible, but rare. Most managers serve their full term. He tilted his head. But 13 years is a long time. You might not even make it that long. The rules protect you, but they're not perfect. Theater 9 tests every manager, finds their weaknesses. Eventually, something breaks. I thought about Marshal. Thought about the rules, thought about the screaming bag in the chute and the thing in the vents and my shadow peeling off the floor. I thought about what would happen if I walked away. I'll do it, I said. The man smiled. This time, it almost looked genuine. Good. Then, let's begin your education. He led me to Marshal's office. The door was already open. Inside, everything had changed. The desk was clear, the computer gone. The map on the wall had been replaced with something else. A complex diagram showing the cinema's layout, but with additional markings. Symbols, lines connecting rooms, annotations in a language I couldn't read. And on the desk, centered perfectly, was the black leather book. This, the man said, gesturing to the book, contains every rule, all of them. Not just the 11 you've been following. There are 47 rules in total. Most you'll never encounter. Some are seasonal. Others only activate under specific circumstances. But you need to know them all. He opened the book to the first page. The text was handwritten in fading ink. At the top, it read, "The Complete Rules of the Hollow Screen Cinema, Revised Edition, 1987. 1987? I asked. This building wasn't built until 2003. This building wasn't. The cinema was here before. Different form, different facade, but the same essential structure. The same purpose. He turned pages slowly. The hollow screen has existed in various forms since 1947. Always as a theater, always as a border crossing. The rules evolved over time as we learned what worked and what didn't. He stopped on a page near the middle. Rule number 12. I read it. Rule number 12. There must always be a manager. The manager serves for 13 years or until death, whichever comes first. The manager cannot abandon their post. The manager cannot be fired. The manager is responsible for all consequences of rule violations by themselves or their staff. Simple, isn't it? The man said, but absolutely binding. You accepted the position. You are now the manager. You cannot quit. You cannot leave. For the next 13 years, you belong to this place. The temperature in the room dropped. I could see my breath. What if I changed my mind? Too late. The commitment was made when you spoke the words, "I'll do it." Verbal contracts are binding in my world, and since this cinema exists partially in my world. He smiled. You're bound. Panic rose in my throat. You tricked me. I did no such thing. I told you the choice was final. I told you commitment requires faith. You simply didn't understand what you were agreeing to. He moved toward the door. But don't despair. You have tools now. Knowledge, authority. You can hire staff, set schedules, make changes to operations, within the boundaries of the rules, of course. And you'll learn. You'll adapt. You might even survive. Wait. I grabbed his arm without thinking. The cold was instant and excruciating, like touching dry ice with bare skin. I jerked back, but the damage was done. My palm was red and blistered, the pattern of frostburn spreading up my wrist. The man looked at my hand with something that might have been sympathy. Don't touch things from my world, not directly, not without protection. He gestured to a cabinet in the corner of the office. In there, Marshal's gloves, rubber and leather, insulated. They'll help. He opened the door to leave. What's your name? I asked. He paused. Names have power. Best not to know. But if you need to refer to me, call me the archivist. I maintain records of both sides, ensure agreements are kept. I'm not your enemy, Leo Sanderson, but I'm not your friend either. I'm simply invested in the rules being followed. Then he was gone. I looked down at the black leather book. My book now. The rules I'd have to enforce for the next 13 years. I started reading. Rule number 13. No food or drink is allowed in Theater 9 unless the customer specifically requests it. If they do, provide them with whatever they ask for, no matter how unusual. Do not ask questions. Do not watch them consume it. Rule number 14. If the projection equipment in any theater begins playing a film you didn't start, let it finish. Do not interrupt. Do not enter the theater until the movie ends on its own. Rule number 15. If you see children playing in the lobby after midnight, leave them alone. They were here before the cinema. They'll be here after. The rules went on and on. Some made a twisted kind of sense. Others were completely arbitrary, but all of them were absolute. I spent the rest of that night reading, learning, trying to understand the full scope of what I'd agreed to. By dawn, I'd made it through 30 of the 47 rules. I was exhausted. My hands still throbbed from touching the archivist. My eyes burned from reading by the dim light of Marshal's desk lamp. But I understood now. I understood what this place was, why it existed, what it was holding back. The hollow-screen cinema was a cage, a prison, a locked door between reality and something that wasn't quite reality. On the other side were things that shouldn't exist, things that had been banished or contained or simply never allowed into our world in the first place. Theater 9 was the main gate, the primary crossing point, but there were others, smaller breaches, the vents, the chute, the basement that didn't exist, each one carefully managed by rules that had been written in blood and refined through decades of trial and error. And I was now responsible for all of it. Around 5 a.m., Nora knocked on the office door. "You look terrible," she said. "I feel terrible. He trapped me. I can't leave." She nodded. "I know. Happened to me, too. Happened to Marshal. Happens to everyone who takes jobs seriously." She set a cup of coffee on the desk. "You'll learn to live with it, or you won't. Either way, cinema doesn't care. It just needs someone to enforce rules. Did you know? When you encouraged me to stay, did you know I wouldn't be able to leave?" "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. "Why didn't you warn me?" "Because someone needs to do job. Better you than someone who doesn't believe. Better you than someone who breaks rules and gets everyone killed." She moved toward the door. "You'll understand eventually. This is mercy, not cruelty." She left me alone with the book and my regrets. Rule number 23. If a customer says they've been to the cinema before, but you have no record of their visit, smile and nod. Do not argue. Do not check your records in front of them. They're telling the truth, just not about this version of the cinema. I started my new role as manager that night. Officially. I updated the employee records, putting my name in the system, changed the passwords on the computer. Found Marshall's keys in a locked drawer, dozens of them, for doors I didn't even know existed yet. And I started enforcing the rules with new understanding. Around midnight, I encountered Rule 23 for the first time. An elderly couple approached the concession stand, smiling warmly. "We used to come here in the 60s, the old man said. "This place hasn't changed a bit." The cinema was built in 2003. Before that, this lot had been a parking structure. Before that, a department store. I'd looked up the history, but I smiled and nodded. "I'm so glad you're back. What can I get you?" They ordered popcorn and sodas, chatting about movies they'd seen here decades ago, films that came out before the building existed. They were happy, nostalgic, harmless. As they walked toward Theater 7, I noticed their shadows. They were wrong, not in angle, but in consistency. Sometimes the shadows were younger, sometimes they wore different clothes, sometimes there were 3 shadows for 2 people. They were telling the truth. Just about a different version of this cinema, a different timeline, a different layer of reality that had existed here before and still existed somehow, overlapping with ours. The rules made sense now. Horrible, nightmarish sense. Rule number 31. If you encounter yourself in the cinema, do not speak to them, do not acknowledge them, walk past as if they don't exist. They are from another layer, and making contact will collapse both versions. I never encountered Rule 31. Thank God. But I found notes from Marshal about it, about the time he'd seen himself walking through the lobby and almost called out before remembering the rule. "Saw my other self for maybe 10 seconds, he'd written in the margin. He looked tired, older. He had a scar on his face I don't have. He was crying. I don't know why. I don't want to know." Rule number 47. When your 13 years are complete, you will receive a visitor. They will offer you a choice. Take the first option. Never take the second. No matter what they promise. The last rule, the final one. Marshall had underlined it 3 times and written in the margin, "I chose wrong. Forgive me." That's when I understood what had really happened to him. 13 years. He'd served his full term. Then, the archivist or someone like him had come with a choice. Option 1, leave with your life, but give up something important. Option 2, stay and protect something even more important by entering Theater 9 and sealing the breach from the inside. Marshall had chosen to save others, chosen sacrifice. And now he was trapped in that other world, holding the membrane together through sheer will and suffering for 12 more years. Then someone else would have to take his place. And maybe that someone would be me. I closed the book and looked around Marshall's office. My office now. 13 years. I had 13 years to learn everything, to find a way to break the cycle, to maybe, possibly, find a loophole in rules that had been written over decades by people much smarter than me. Or 13 years to accept my fate. I chose option 3. 13 years to survive and figure out what option 1 really meant. Because Marshall had written, "I chose wrong," which meant he'd taken option 2. The sacrifice, the noble choice. But the rule said to take the first option, which meant staying wasn't the right answer. There was a way out that didn't involve suffering for eternity in another dimension. I just had to last long enough to find it. 3 months later, I've been manager of the Hollow Screen Cinema for 3 months now. 92 days, 2,208 hours. I've learned all 47 rules, encountered 33 of them personally, hired 2 new ushers who don't know the full truth yet but will learn. Theater 9 hasn't opened during a show again. The archivist hasn't returned. Nora still cleans every night, still offers cryptic advice, still survives. I've started keeping my own notes in the margins of the Black Book, adding details, recording experiences, building a knowledge base for whoever comes after me, if anyone comes after me. And I've started investigating, reading through Marshal's files, researching the history of this location, looking for patterns, looking for answers, because I am not going to end up like Marshal. I'm not going to choose wrong when my 13 years are up. I'm going to find option one, the real option one, the one that lets you leave with your life and your sanity intact. Or I'm going to die trying. Either way, I'm going to make sure the next manager knows more than I did, knows what they're really agreeing to, has a chance to make an informed choice. This job will not trap anyone else the way it trapped me. That's my new rule. Rule 48. The one I wrote myself at the very end of the book. Rule number 48, fight back. Last night, something new happened. Something that wasn't in the rules. I was closing up around 5 a.m. when I heard a sound from Theater 9. Not the door opening, not voices or movement, just a single word, spoken so quietly I almost missed it. Help. Marshal's voice, his real voice, not the thing from the basement pretending to be him, the actual man. I stood outside Theater 9 for 10 minutes, listening. Nothing else. Just that one word, repeated every 30 seconds or so. Help! 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 I wanted to open the door. Wanted to go in there and pull him out. Rules be damned. But I remembered what the archivist had said. Opening Theater 9 during a show would collapse everything. Would let things through that shouldn't exist in our world. So I stood there, listening to Marshal beg for help, doing nothing. Eventually, the voice stopped, but I've made a decision. 12 years and 9 months from now, when my time comes due, I'm not going into that theater. I'm not sealing any breach. I'm not sacrificing myself for a system I didn't create and don't fully understand. I'm going to find another way. Or I'm going to tear this place down trying. The hollow screen cinema has rules, but rules can be broken. You just have to be willing to pay the price. And I'm keeping a record of everything. Every rule, every encounter, every piece of knowledge I gain. When this is over, one way or another, the world will know the truth about this place. You're reading that record now. If you found this, it means either I succeeded and got out, or I failed and became part of Theater 9 like Marshal. Either way, you know now. You know what the hollow screen cinema really is, what it holds back, what it costs to maintain. If you ever see a job posting for a cinema usher at Ashwood Mall, paying way more than it should, requiring night shifts, mentioning strong nerves preferred, run. Just run. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't think you can beat the system. Don't believe you'll be the exception. Because in the end, the cinema always wins. Always. But I'm going to try anyway. Rule 48. Fight back, even if it kills me.